Welcome back to Web Woman. I am so glad that you're here. I'm truly honored to be with you and that you've chosen to spend time with me. Thank you. It means so much to me. So, as you kind of come into this space, as we come into this space across time and space together, we meet. And let's just take this moment and breathe together a couple of times, not to try to trick our nervous system into calming down, not to try to manipulate our body into doing something that it's not wanting to do, but rather just to invite ourselves into presence. That's what I want to talk about today is presence. What does it mean to have presence? What does it mean to be present? It's one of those words that we throw around really easily about like wanting to be present, being present, bringing our presence. And then what does that look like? What does that mean? What does that feel like inside of our body? Now you'll hear me talking about what do things feel like inside of our body often, because one of my biggest lessons over the last few years has been realizing the alienation or the disconnection of my body to my mind, of my body to my spirit. The reality is this: our bodies are our vessel, are our vehicle, they are our divinely appointed medium through which we get to experience presence and we get to experience present moment life. The hard part is you can get over identified with the body and start to believe I am this body. When you believe I am the body, you start to think I'm too fat, I'm too skinny, I don't have enough curves, I have too many curves, I feel sick, I am my sickness, I have this disease, I am this thing. And those are all parts of having a body, but those are not your essence. Those are not my essence. My experience of this body is not who I am. And then on the other side of the coin, though, what I've lived through, it's like if you kind of try to live through that, I am the body for so long, it's almost like you can either do that or you flip flop to the other side, which is I will deny everything that my body's ever telling me. I will not listen to emotions. I will not listen to feelings. I will not listen to symptoms. I'm going to just live in the mind, and I'm going to live in logic and awareness. And awareness, I'm going to put big quotes around that one. I'm going to live in logic. I'm going to live in enlightenment. I'm going to live an enlightened life. And then I don't have to worry about what the body is doing because I'll be brought up into spirit. I'll be in communicating with spirit, and spirit will be the one guiding me, and I don't have to worry about the body at all. But the reality is about presence. Presence is this beautiful gift that we have right in this moment where we get to pull our consciousness from the great expanse, the amazing, abundant, infinite being that we are. And we get to invite that into matter itself. And the body is the vessel through which we do this. Okay. That's why we take breath together. So, all of that was this huge introduction to say, let's take a breath together and pull yourself into your body for just a few moments. And if you experience tension in your shoulders or tension in your jaw, just notice it. Don't try to change it. You don't even have to relax it. Just notice it. It's a sign, it's a signal from your body that something is happening, and that's okay. It doesn't need your fixing and it doesn't need your judgment. It just wants your attention. That's the beauty of the present moment. When we enter our body in the present moment, and that includes what we see, what we hear, what we're tasting, what we're smelling, what we're feeling on our skin. Our senses, our external senses are a part of this body's experience. As we come into this present moment and notice any pain, notice any numbness, notice any stuck feeling, notice any fear or terror, notice any joy, those are signals of where we are in this present moment. What is really happening? So many times I find myself, and if you find yourself in this place too, please let me know. So many times I find myself lost in some sort of game in my mind. And by game, I mean it's not real, but it feels really intense and really real. It feels like when you read a really good book and you get kind of caught up in it and you forget that that's like not a real world, like you've created such a story. Well, that's fine when it's a fictional story and you know it's a story and you can put the book down. But what I found is I tend to live a lot of my life caught in an external expression or an external narrative. I guess that's a better word for it. A story that I have either created about my future, whether that's worrying about it or even being excited about it, or I become attached to a thing and then I start to try to control it from this moment. I try to control it, and the control is where I start to feel like anxiety and I feel suffering and I feel worry and I feel I have to make everybody do what I want them to do so that my future goal that I just created, this whole story I just created in my mind, happens the way that I want it to happen. On the other hand, you know, there's a reality of creating a story about the past. And well, what would happen if I let go of this? What happens if I don't hold on to this story of my past, of whether it's trauma or what I perceive to be happening or what really did happen or what other people told me happened or any of these things? What That's another form of this game where I'm narrating a reality, and both of those stories create a gap in my present awareness, and that gap is, I believe, suffering. The gap between my present moment reality, what I'm feeling, tasting, touching, aware of, and the story I'm making about my past, the story I'm making up about my future, the gap between those things is where suffering comes in my life. Now, what I mean by suffering, suffering is not the same thing as pain. Suffering is not even the same thing as grief. Suffering isn't the same thing as sadness or anger or fear. Suffering is the amount of weight I attach to the stories that I have created. And this can be a good story or a bad story. The reason I say it can be a good story is this. Have you ever had an event coming up, maybe a vacation or a party or something like that, and you really want it to go well, right? And you start to plan. Great, planning is fantastic. However, as you start to plan, then like one thing starts to go wrong. And by wrong, I mean the way that you didn't plan it. And so then you get a little bit of anxiety and you kind of and you get a little tighter and your body feels smaller and you start to shrink just a little bit or tense or get bigger and start to like throw fists and yell at somebody or anything like that. Then the next thing happened. You're getting ready for your vacation, you can't find, your kid loses their one pair of shoes that you need them to take, and so you have to go to the store the day before the trip, and all of this anxiety is mounting. It's not the planning that's wrong, and it's not the things going wrong that are actually wrong. It's I attached an emotional outcome to this vacation or this party going this certain way. And hello, life happens and things always will come up to trigger us, especially when we form an attachment to something, an attachment to an outcome. That is one of those like big giant targets on ourselves to say, come on in, let's trigger me so that I can learn something here because I've formed an attachment to something outside of my own self. I've formed an attachment to something making me a certain way. I formed an attachment to this party will make me happy. This vacation is just what I need. If I don't get this vacation this certain way, I never truly can be happy. If I don't get a good night's sleep the way I perceive myself to need a good night's sleep, then I'm going to be angry and crabby the rest of the day. So I better get my good night's sleep. And the reality is, those are stories, those are scripts, those are tapes that we have allowed to play in our mind and to literally open a gap for suffering to enter the picture. Now, I don't want to be diminutive, and there's so much more to suffering than this. However, it can be very simple, especially if you're starting very, very small. It can be this simple, which is noticing as you perceive yourself to be suffering on a big scale or on a small scale, notice where the suffering is coming from. Is it coming from the actual situation, the present moment reality, like right this moment? In this present moment for me, right now, I can tell you, there is no suffering in my body. There is no suffering in this moment. Are there difficult things that I have to deal with in the future? I think so. Well, I know so, but I'm not going to bring those things into this moment's peace. On the other hand, on this going this direction to the past for me, are there things that have happened in my past that deserve um, sadness, deserve grief, deserve um, a voice? Absolutely. Absolutely. But when I breathe in this present moment reality and I start to observe myself right here, right now, I realize and I remember I am peace. I am peace. And just like I won't let someone stomp into my house with their muddy boots on right after I did the floors, I will not allow these memories or these past stories to stomp their way through my good present moment and steal from me the peace that I have worked to cultivate. I hope this is making sense. And if it's not, feel free to just dust it off, never even come back to it, or return back when it calls to you. Because this is something that I'm processing in real time. As I've noticed, I want to fix the world around me. I want to change the world around me. I want to make everyone happy. I want everyone to experience peace. I want everyone to experience joy. I want everyone to remember their wholeness and their peace and their perfection that they were born with. No matter the stories, I want everyone to feel that. However, what can also happen there is rather than enjoying my own peace, I go out and I'm throwing out all these tentacles of desire, these tentacles of make you better, make you better, make you better, make this situation better, make my house better, make my garden better, make my kids better, make my husband better, make my work situations better, make this better, 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 better. There's nothing wrong with wanting more and growth, but the key is not outside of you. The key is not outside of me. The key to cultivating a home in my world is cultivating a home in myself. That's a good word. I can tell my body needed that word because I can feel it right here, right inside of my body. I can feel it. The key to cultivating a peaceful home, a community, environment, world is to cultivate a home within myself in this moment right now, in every single moment as each one comes, creating peace, cultivating peace. There's a story in the Bible about Jesus, and he is on the waves or on the boat with his disciples, with his followers, and they were fishermen, and he would go out on these boats. There's a couple of different stories, one where he's walking on the water, and there's two different ones where he's in a boat. And I love these three approaches to because there may be more. I'm not a theologian, just these are the three approaches that I've observed. There's three approaches that Jesus takes in the Gospels to um, waves, to dis-ease, to chaos. Because the water, these lakes, the water represents chaos, right? The unknown, because there's depths that we don't understand, especially if you're on a little fishing boat in the middle of it and the waves start to pick up. That's chaos, right? There's three different takes that Jesus takes on, three different examples of him cultivating a home, cultivating peace. And the first one is, of course, the famous Jesus walking on water. It says that the storm was going and the waves were really high, and Jesus comes walking across the water to meet his disciples because they were having a tough time. And in that, he doesn't calm the storm before he gets to the boat. Or before he even steps out on the water. He doesn't wait for the storm to calm before he takes a step forward. He just walks knowing that the peace inside of him cannot be overcome by the chaos outside. It just walks across. And then it goes into a whole other part of faith and Peter and all the different things. That's not important. I'm more focused on the approach of Jesus' peace within himself as he's walking across the water and the waves. Second approach is, there's a time when Christ is on the boat and the waves are everywhere and his disciples are going crazy, and Jesus literally stands, and he says to the wind, peace, be still, right? That's very famous words. And he creates the peace, right? And that is a super powerful picture, obviously, of the peace within you, going beyond yourself and taking the people around you and bringing them into your peace, taking the ocean, the waves, the lake, the chaos around you, and saying, I'm going to spread my awareness into the world around me and not be changed by it, but change it, right? The third one is my personal favorite, though. My favorite because Jesus is said to be, they go out on their boat and he goes underneath the boat or in the boat. I don't know how it works. I don't know what the boat was shaped like, but he goes and he lays down and he takes a nap, right? He's literally asleep. And the waves kick up and he doesn't stir. He doesn't have to fix it. He doesn't have to change it in order to remain at rest. He doesn't have to produce something in order to earn rest. He doesn't have to make sure everybody's taken care of before he can give himself what he needs and his rest. All the same, his disciples wake him up and say, how can you sleep at a time like this? And he says, what? What are y'all talking about? Don't you realize that you're held, you're home, you're safe? Okay, since you don't realize it, peace, be still, the waves go still, and they're all in shock and awe again. And I love the sleeping story because it gives me a little nugget of truth for my day-to-day life, which is, I love all three of them because there's not one way to approach a situation. There's lots of different ways to be at peace within yourself. But for me right now, I'm working on cultivating a sense of presence. And then on top of that, how do I rest inside of that presence? Can I just be here without having to produce something? Can I be present without producing? An even harder question after that is, can I be present while producing? But that'll be something else for me to work on next time, because right now I am learning to cultivate the peace and cultivate the rest and enjoy this present moment. Thank you so much for being with me today. I love you guys. I hope this spoke to you. And if it did, please like, comment. If you haven't subscribed yet, I know it's such a thing to tell people to subscribe, but it really does make a difference. And it helps me know that what I'm doing is actually speaking to you and ministering to you. If you know somebody who could benefit from this too, I'd appreciate you sharing this with them. I love you. Have a great week.